Hey everyone, it's Anime Reaper coming at you with another What If Naruto Found Out About Uzumaki Clan at a Young Age, Part 16. This fanfiction was written by Dreener. If you like this what if and want more like it, please like and subscribe to my channel and don't forget to check the description and leave a comment down below. Without further ado, let's get started. Chapter 33, Genin of Konoha. Naruto. The redhead saw Iruka-sensei walking inside the class. Usually, most of the students would still keep talking, not bothering that Iruka was here, but today would be decided the teams, and everyone was waiting in anticipation to see with who they would end up with. Everyone fell silent as Iruka walked into the center of the class and cleared his throat to gain everyone's attention. We have been together for 7 years, and now the time has come for you to become shinobi of the Hidden Leaf and make your country proud, Iruka said, holding back his tears. His eyes glanced at Naruto, who was listening to his speech. Iruka talked with them for a few more minutes. Shikamaru had fallen asleep and wasn't thinking of what Iruka said. Everyone except Naruto looked bored and couldn't wait until Iruka was done with his boring speech. Iruka finished and glanced at everyone in the class. Ino talked with Sakura for God knows what. Kiba looked bored and was leaning his head against the back of the chair. Shikamaru was sleeping, and Koji was eating chips. Sasuke was probably busy daydreaming the day he would kill Itachi, and Naruto looked focused on what was happening. Anyway, I will start announcing the teams, he shouted, and that grabbed the attention of everyone. Even Shikamaru was awake for this part. Naruto listened, and soon Iruka announced the teams up to Team 7. Team 7 is Naruto Uzumaki Senju. Every girl in the class fell silent right now. Almost everyone except Sakura and a few others held their breath. Naruto was the hottest guy in the class, and every girl wanted him in her team. Some licked their lips at the thought of being in the same team with Naruto. Shikamaru, Koji, and Shino focused since they wanted to know if they would be on the same team as their friend. Shika highly doubted it since Ino Shikacho was S famous Konoha team, and the third Hokage would most likely want another generation of the same team. Ino hoped to be on the same team with Naruto for 2 reasons. He was the most attractive guy in the whole academy, and she knew for sure he was probably the strongest genin, giving her a chance to train with him and become stronger and spend time with him. Sakura Harino. Many girls shouted no, including Sakura, who couldn't believe that the god was so cruel to put her on the same team as Naruto. Naruto fought the urge to scream out loud. Why was he in the same team as the worthless Banshee? Why did she even graduate in the first place? Naruto, of course, knew that the academy had gone downhill since the civil council had a bit of power to change the academy, making the passing exam much more effortless and not learning anything hard in the academy. Naruto couldn't understand why the hardest thing to learn in the academy was simple clone jutsu, transformation jutsu, and substitution jutsu. Why they knew nothing about Fuinjutsu in the academy was beyond him if it kept going like this. After like 50 years, Hidden Leaf Village will be lucky to have a seal master of level V or lower. Why does the god hate me so much? Naruto mentally asked himself. Don't worry, Naruto, if it is necessary, we can just kill her and bury her body somewhere. It is not like anyone would notice her disappearance, Kurama suddenly said with an evil smirk on his face and chuckling slightly. Naruto's ears perked when he heard his voice. Oh Kurama, you're right and probably is the best advice you have ever given to me, but hopefully she won't be that much of a bother to me if I just ignore her annoying flat ass, Naruto replied, smiling. And Sasuke Uchiha, Iruka-sensei announced the last member, followed by the annoying look and disapproval of every girl in the class except Sakura, who raised her fists in the air celebrating. She pointed the finger at Ino. Take that Ino pig, true love wins always. She shouted happily and glanced at Sasuke, expecting him to be happy to be in the same team with her, except he looked bored and annoyed. Ino didn't care that Sasuke was in her team, but she was annoyed that Sakura got Naruto. Shikamaru looked slightly confused since both Naruto and Sasuke were in the same team, the 2 strongest genin in the academy. While true that Sakura was next to useless, still. At least Naruto is in my team, but why exactly do I need that useless Banshee in my team? At least Ino knows more than her and doesn't go around screaming like the end of the world is coming, Sasuke thought, annoyed, and glancing at Ino, while Ino held her head down. Your sensei is Kakashi Hatake, Iruka finished and turned his eyes to announce Team 8. Naruto raised his eyebrows in surprise, holding his hands behind his head. He didn't expect Kakashi to be his sensei, the redhead understood that Kakashi would most likely train Sasuke because of his Sharingan. While Sakura didn't care who was her sensei as long as Sasuke was in her team, she held her hands clenched together in front of her face, her eyes closed and imagining Sasuke asking her on a date or kissing him. Sasuke, on the other hand, remembers the name from Naruto. Naruto mentioned Kakashi is a prodigy, and I read that he's a well-known shinobi around the world. He will be good to teach me, Sasuke thought. Team 8 is Kiba Inyazuka, Shino Abarame, and Hinata Hyuga. Your sensei is Kurane Uehai, Iruka announced, completing it. Kiba raised his hands in the air, happy that a beautiful girl like Hinata was in his team while Akamaru was barking at him to not act like 2 years old. Shino's face didn't change, but his eyes glanced at Hinata to see her reaction but saw that she had lowered her head in disappointment. Hinata had wished to be on the same team as Naruto-kun, but it seems that wasn't the case. She knew she could still spend time sometimes with him, probably on holiday. The Hyuga heiress found some encouragement that Kurane-sensei was her sensei. Team 9 is already working. Team 10 is Shikamaru Nara, Ino Yamanaka, and Koji Akimichi, Iruka-sensei announced loudly for everyone to hear. Almost everyone expected Ino to scream, but instead, she just rolled her eyes and minded her own business. Shikamaru was happy that his best friend was on his team but grunted that he would deal with Ino. Troublesome. Your sensei is Asuma Sarutobi, he finished, and his eyes went to announce the other team. Naruto smiled at Shika since his troublesome friend had told him that he wanted Asuma to be his sensei. Shikamaru smiled at Naruto and was happy to hear that. Listening to the members of each team, Naruto understood the reason behind the team placement. So my team is the assault team, but why exactly is Sakura in my team? She knows next to nothing about assault. Team 10 is the supporting team, with Shikamaru acting as a strategist, Koji as the muscle, and Ino to gather information and distract the enemy with her clan's ability. And Team 8 is the tracking team, all the members can track Shino with his bugs, Hinata with her Byakugan, Kiba with Akamaru, Naruto thought, and Shikamaru had understood it as well. Iruka-sensei finished and left the room. Now, all they had to do was wait until sensei arrived. Naruto groaned, knowing how long it would take for his big brother to arrive. I guess we better get comfortable. Kakashi-sensei has a bad habit of always being late for at least 2 hours, Naruto said, letting Sakura and Sasuke know. The Uchiha fought the urge to face Palm and decided to read a jutsu scroll from his clan until sensei arrived. Sakura had her eyes on Sasuke and decided to go and try and talk with him. Naruto opened his bag and decided to read about Fuinjutsu until Kakashi arrived. The door opened, revealing a beautiful kunoichi and a guy with a beard walking behind her. Naruto felt the similar chakra of the Jonin, and he could tell just from his chakra alone that he was Asuma Sarutobi. Naruto didn't recognize the woman but blushed slightly at her face. He couldn't help but notice that she was beautiful. Team 8 with me, Kurane announced, and her eyes noticed Hinata, who was giving glances at who she knew was Naruto. She hoped the poor heiress would find the courage to ask Naruto on a date. Holhua, we have a hot Jonin, Kiba shouted happily and looked at the body of the Jonin. Kurane had a tick mark on her forehead, and Asuma fought the urge to slap the disrespectful boy. Akamaru barked at his owner to shut up. Hinata, Shino, and Kiba stood up and followed Kurane. Team 10 with me, Asuma started smoking a cigarette. Troublesome, Shikamaru whispered before standing up and following him. Ino glanced at Naruto and soon followed Shika and Koji. Naruto saw them leaving, and soon, Sakura and Sasuke were the only ones left in the class. Naruto changed the page and was reading about the combination of different seals. Despite being level 10, he couldn't combine more than 2 seals, and he hoped there were books in Uzushiagakuer for combining 3 seals. But that didn't stop Naruto from experimenting and having seals blow upon his face. Sakura was busy trying to get closer to her Sasuke-kun. She slowly and quietly changed seats and got closer to her man of dreams. Sasuke was reading a scroll about a fire jutsu of rank B. Fire style, raining fire. Cost, medium Chunin chakra level. The jutsu sends multiple small fireballs towards the enemy. As he was focusing, he noticed a useless girl approaching like a stupid puppy dog in the corner of his eyes. Sasuke thought. Sasuke, do you want to hang out after this? Sakura asked, blushing. Sasuke was literally thinking of what exactly he did in his past life to deserve a banshee like her in the team. Most have been horrendous, he thought, and kept reading the scroll and decided to train on it after he was done here. After 1 hour. Kakashi was making his way to the class after paying his respects. Usually, he would be late for at least 1 more hour or even 2 more hours, but he knew Naruto didn't take kindly to his being late habits. So he decided to go early this time. Naruto was still reading and had a blanket paper on his desk and using a brush to make a 3 combine seal in the class. He hoped he would be able to succeed. Sasuke was still reading the scroll, trying to memorize everything, while Sakura was sitting on the desk closest to Sasuke, who looked annoyed by her constant attempt to have a conversation with him. Naruto could feel Kakashi-sensei coming, so he sealed the paper and the book away. Sasuke noticed and decided to stop reading. After a few seconds, the class door opened, revealing a white-haired shinobi with a mask covering his face, from his nose to his chin. His right eye was not covered, while his forehead protector covered his left. Before Kakashi could say anything, Naruto pointed the finger at him. "You finally arrived, old man Kakashi," he shouted. His voice boomed around the class and even the corridor. Kakashi looked at Naruto, annoyed that he still was using his disrespectful nickname. Sasuke and Sakura looked confused at how Naruto called their sensei. "My first thought of all of you, you're boring, and the redhead is annoying." He started pointing the finger at Naruto, who was smiling from ear to ear. "In the roof, you have 10 minutes, he stated thoughtfully before he shunshin away. "See you there," Naruto said, waving at them before he disappeared and left leaves behind. Sasuke made a mental note to learn that jutsu as soon as possible before running towards the stairs, followed by Sakura. Kakashi looked up to see Naruto in front of him sitting at the stairs. He smiled and pulled away from his book. "Oh, Naruto, it is good to see you," he said, smiling behind his mask. Naruto smiled back. "Didn't know you would be my sensei," Naruto stated happily that Kakashi would be his sensei. "I myself was surprised. I expected Hokage-sama to put you in the team with Shikamaru or someone else," Kakashi said and noticed Sasuke and Sakura arriving. "Naruto, how do you arrive here before us?" Sakura exclaimed, her hands clenched together and glaring at the redhead. The young Uzumaki rolled his head and shook his head. "I shunsen Banshi," he replied, annoying Sakura. She raised her fist and tried to hit Naruto but stopped when Naruto turned his cold blue eyes at her. She felt a shiver in her whole body and felt cold. Her heart started beating in her throat. Without saying another word, Sasuke sat at the center, and Sakura was at his right, looking at the brooding Uchiha with hearts in her eyes. "So I guess you 3 are going to my squad from now on, huh? Well, how about we introduce ourselves, maybe share some likes, dislikes, hobbies." "Okay, well, how about you go first, then sensei," Sakura piped in. "Okay. I am Hatake Kakashi. I have no intentions of telling you my likes and dislikes. As for my dream," he drifted off before snapping back to his students, "I have few hobbies." Naruto snickered at his sensei's response. "Your turn, Pinky." "Well, I like," she said as she turned to look at Sasuke, "I dislike, Naruto baka. My dreams are," she continued to stare at Sasuke, and then giggled when she said, "and my hobby is." "Oh great," all 3 men thought, mentally face-palming. "My dream is," she said again, looking at Sasuke. She giggled and blushed at her face. Naruto and Sasuke shook their heads at her idiomaticity, while Kakashi thought why and how exactly she became a genin. Still, knowing that her mother is in civil council, he shouldn't be surprised. "Well, you next, Emo." Sasuke looked annoyed by his nickname but decided to just get on with it. "My name is Sasuke Uchiha. I like a few things, and I dislike a lot of things like fangirls and people who whine all the time. My dream, know what I will achieve, is to kill a person, restore my clan and make my parents proud of me," he stated, and half of his face looked covered by a shadow. Naruto understood he wanted to kill Itachi, while the redhead seemed to notice the worried crease appear on Kakashi's face. Then it was his turn. "You next, Naruto." Since it was his introduction, Naruto decided to say his full name. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki Senju Namikaze, I like. But your name is Uzumaki Naruto baka. Geez, how are we going to survive when you can't even get your name right?" Sakura interrupted, chest puffed out proudly to know she'd gotten another one up on the baka Naruto. "Actually, Sakura, that was my mother's last name. I learned that my father's surname was Namikaze. But I've only ever heard of one Namikaze living in Konoha, silly, and that was the Yondaime Hokage." She drifted off as the 2 academy graduates stared at Naruto dumbfounded. "Yep, the Yondaime was my dad." Sakura looked perplexed while Sasuke had just a raised eyebrow. Before he could get cut off again, Naruto quickly continued, anyway, my likes are ramen, learning new techniques, learning fuinjutsu, having friends. Ashura-chan and Fyu-chan. My dislikes are people who assume they are better than others, those who can't tell the difference between a kunao and a scroll. I dislike traitors and rapists, and my dream is to rebuild my homeland, restore my clan, and make my parents proud. My hobbies include fuinjutsu, training, reading, and cooking. Oh, and can you not tell anyone who my dad was? I wanted you guys to know because you're my team, but I don't want heaps of other people to know yet. Kakashi wondered what exactly Naruto meant with, rebuild my homeland. Sasuke looked interested when Naruto mentioned that he wanted to restore his clan. Kakashi nodded, yes, that is wise, I hope you heed these words, the Jounin said to the other. Yes, what I was going to say was that tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., I want you to meet me at Training Ground 21 for your final examination before becoming permanent genin in this squad. And don't eat breakfast beforehand. What? Sakura exclaimed, I thought we'd already passed and graduated, wasn't that what the academy was for? This girl is really annoying me, and I hope I can somehow return her on track before she dooms herself or a friend. Yes, but you still need to pass this final test if you want to be Shinobi of Konoha. He said before disappearing in a whirl of leaves. Naruto stood up and turned to his teammates. I will eat breakfast. It sounded more like advice than an order, Naruto stated before disappearing. Sasuke noticed what Naruto said and decided to listen to his advice. But before he could go away. Sasuke-kun, do you want to hang out? Sakura asked, blushing heavily. No. Naruto. He soon reached his home, walking inside the compound. I'm home, Naruto said, smiling. Shizune came. First, she gave him a big hug, that Naruto returned. It's good to have you here, Naruto. Tsunade is still in the hospital working, she replied. Well, I will go to my room to study, Naruto stated before he left. The redhead reached his room and quickly returned to his seal, trying to get it to work. That night multiple explosions happened in Naruto's room. Tomorrow. Naruto was leaning against a tree, writing on a blank paper. Sakura ran over to Sasuke, not paying the slightest amount of attention to the fact that Naruto was there. Still, before she could start harassing him, Kakashi appeared in a swirl of leaves, his face planted in a book that Naruto by now knew was Ika Ika. Naruto couldn't understand why so many people read the book, every old guy he knew was a pervert. Okay, guys, today you have to pass a test to see if you truly have what it takes to be genin of Konoha. If you do not pass this test, it is within my rights to send you back to the academy or remove you from the program altogether. At this, both Sasuke and Sakura looked shocked and betrayed that Konoha would do such a thing. Naruto, however, had a stern expression, thinking over what had been said so far. I have here 2 bells. I'd like you to do your best to take them from me. Whoever doesn't have a bell in 3 hours will not pass. But sensei, they are 2 bells, and we are 3 genin, Sakura interjected. I see you can count, Sakura. It means one of us will have to return to the academy, Naruto stated with a cold tone that impressed even Kakashi. Sakura looked shocked and perplexed, while Sasuke looked confused. Naruto's right, Sakura, one of you will return, Kakashi said, confirming what Naruto told is accurate, and then put a clock at the top of a wooden pole. Alright, well, can we begin, Kakashi-sensei? Naruto asked, and gone was the humorous tone and now was changed to serious. You may. He said, turning his attention back to Ika Ika. All 3 genin disappeared immediately, leaving Kakashi alone. His eye looked around to notice Sakura against a bush, close to him. Sasuke had climbed up a tree and was staring at him, and just as he predicted, he couldn't detect Naruto anywhere. Well, Naruto, I hope you go easy, the white-hair shinobi murmured under his breath before deciding to go after Sakura first. Meanwhile, Naruto stood at the top of a tree using his godfather's camouflage jutsu not to be detected. There's no such thing as 2 genin teams, that means the test is something else, Naruto thought out loud. He knew his big brother liked strong teamwork in a group, hell, most of the jonin had their test revolves around teamwork. He punched his palm. I see you want us to work together, he whispered before jumping in the ground and deciding to see if Sakura or Sasuke would agree to work together. While this was happening, Sakura was busy running around the forest screaming Sasuke-kun at the top of her lungs. She couldn't wait until she found her Sasuke-kun. She knew her true love was around here somewhere, together they would defeat Kakashi-sensei, both graduating and leaving Naruto Baka in the dust. As she was running, Sakura heard a sound behind her only to see Sasuke slowly walking behind a tree. She beamed and was about to get closer when she saw her Sasuke-kun having several arrows piercing his back in horror. A few had pierced him and came out through his stomach. She could see blood leaking out of his stomach and chest. Blood poured out his mouth, and his teeth were red from blood, his ears and nose dripping blood, his face pale like milk. His eyes were bleeding, and his right eye had almost pooped out where she could see the tiny veins around the sclera of the eye. His left eye had almost gone upwards, inside his head. SS Sakura RRUN ta tak take NAR Naruto, he tried to say before his body caught on flames and started burning. His skin turned black from the fire like coal, scorching him. His eyes burned from the fire, his hair burned, and Sasuke fell to the ground burning. Sakura started screaming, falling to the ground and throwing her arms and legs around. Sasuke heard a scream and knew that it was Sakura. Arriving, she saw her kicking and screaming. Kakashi-sensei stood close to her shaking his head. Sasuke quickly attacked Kakashi with several kunais and shurikens from behind from a nearby tree. Kakashi, of course, dodged the attack by using Kawarami no Jutsu, after which Sasuke then engaged Kakashi in a taijutsu battle, where Sasuke showed impressive taijutsu skill in fighting against Kakashi by pushing him back and having him on the defensive. Although when one looked closely, one could quickly tell that Kakashi was only playing with Sasuke and wasn't taking him seriously. Realizing this, Sasuke jumped away and threw several more kunai at Kakashi, who skillfully dodged them. Although as he did, he fell for a trap that Sasuke had laid out for him where several more kunais and shurikens were fired at him from a nearby tree when Sasuke cut the rope line with one of the kunais that he had thrown at Kakashi a moment ago and activated the trap. As Kakashi dodged the kunais and shurikens, Sasuke quickly raced over to Kakashi and once again engaged him in a taijutsu battle, but as Kakashi blocked all of Sasuke's hits, he quickly realized that Sasuke wasn't just attacking, he was trying to get close to him so that he could grab one of the bells. Whereupon realizing this, Kakashi saw that Sasuke was about to grab one of the bells on his sides. Seeing this, Kakashi quickly jumped away in time, where Sasuke was only able to touch one of the bells. At the near capture, Kakashi sighed slightly with relief. Well, now that was close. This kid is fierce, and I have to admit he does have a lot of talent as well, he thought. After nearly getting the bell, Sasuke decided to take things up a notch, where he quickly did a few hand seals and then cried out Katon, Gokakyu no Jutsu, fire style, great fireball technique, where he expelled from his mouth a massive orb of roaring flame. When the massive fire hit Kakashi, Sasuke quickly ran over to him as the flames died to get the bells. Unfortunately, when Sasuke got to the spot, he could not find Kakashi. Where did he go? Behind me, above, thought Sasuke as he looked all around each direction for any sign of the Jonin sensei. Looking for me, said Kakashi as he grabbed Sasuke's right leg from underground as he used Doton, Shinjuzanshu no Jutsu, Earth style, double suicide decapitation technique, and pulled him underground, leaving just Sasuke head above ground. After which, Kakashi came out from the ground and kneeled at Sasuke, who was glaring at him and angry at being humiliated in this way as he could not move. Hello there, Kakashi said innocently, looking down at Sasuke, who glared at him. Kakashi-sensei. You're a bold one, Kakashi replied, I smiling at him. Before anyone could say anything else, Kakashi saw red chains coming from a bush. He recognized them and jumped upwards towards a branch. They reached very close to his leg, and he landed on the branch only for the tree to have several paper bombs. Shit. A massive explosion happened. Kakashi came out from his hiding spot after his clone got destroyed. He saw Naruto had rescued Sasuke since the hole was empty now. He rubbed his hair and knew it was fun while it lasted but wondered if Sasuke and Sakura would work with Naruto. Away from him, Sasuke saw Sakura still on the ground, probably unconscious. Naruto put his hand on her forehead, and she immediately stood up, and her eyes widened. She had tears streaming down her cheek. But when her eyes landed on Sasuke, Sasuke-kun, she screamed and threw herself at him. Sasuke tried desperately to get her away from him. You're alive, thank God you're alive, she screamed, still crying. Enough with this Sakura, it was a simple E-rank genjutsu, for crying out loud. Now we need to work together to grab the bells from Kakashi-sensei, Naruto stated with a stern tone and his eyes ice cold. Both Sakura and Sasuke fell silent and decided to listen to whatever Naruto wanted to say. Later, Kakashi stood leaning against a tree, He knew Naruto alone was good enough to fight him and get the bells, but Naruto had most likely understood the hidden meaning of the test. His eyes turned to see Sasuke coming out from the trees, running head straight towards him as he was waiting. Kakashi pulled the book away and decided to see what he wanted to do. Sasuke grabbed a kunai and threw it at his feet, only for it to explode. Kakashi jumped away in time and knew Naruto must be nearby, only for Sakura to throw a few shurikens that landed far from him. For a moment, Kakashi thought their plan had failed, but he felt heavy, very heavy. He looked up to see a gravity seal around him. Sakura smirked. Wind style, Shuriken Hurricane. Naruto threw a small shuriken enhanced with wind chakra that transformed into multi-shuriken. Kakashi used all his strength to jump away and landed on the ground, far away from the dangerous shurikens. Fire style, Fireball. Wind style, Great Breakthrough. A huge wind made of fire flew towards him with medium jonin speed. Kakashi smiled behind his mask and the clone burned. The real Kakashi showed up behind Naruto and Sasuke, only for the clock to start ringing. Looks like the time is over. Kakashi started smiling and led them to the 3 tree poles in the middle of the training yard. After they arrived, "It seems you lost," Kakashi said, smiling only for Naruto to pull out the bells from his hand. Both Sasuke and Sakura looked shocked at him while Kakashi thought it was too good to be true. How when did you take them?" Kakashi asked nervously. "When my chakra chains touched your leg," he answered, smiling brightly. Kakashi understood it since he used the clone after jumping away, but not before the chains attacked him. "Well, to who are you going to give your bells?" Kakashi asked with a firm tone. Naruto looked at them before shrugging his shoulders and throwing the bells at Sakura and Sasuke. "Are you sure, Naruto? This means you have to return to the academy," he stated emotionless. Naruto just nodded his head without thinking twice. Sasuke glanced at the bell in his hand before he looked up at Naruto. "We took the bells because of you, you should have mine," Sasuke suddenly stated and threw his to Naruto, who smiled. Sakura looked conflicted about what to do. Before anyone could do anything else, Kakashi gave them a thumbs up. "I happily announce that you all pass," he said smiling. "But Kakashi-sensei, you said that we would have to have a bell to pass the test and Sasuke doesn't, so why does he pass with us?" asked a confused but hopeful Sakura. "This is to see if you are willing to work together, to see if you can look underneath the underneath. For you see, in the ninja world, those who break the rules are scum, but those who abandon their friends and comrades are worse than scum. That's probably the most important lesson I can ever teach you as your sensei, which is why I want you to take it to heart." Kakashi then turned and looked at the memorial stone. "You see this stone next to us? This stone is the memorial stone. It lists all of the shinobis of this village that were killed in the war, and my teammates are on this stone along with my sensei the Yondaime Hokage, as they all died in combat. I come to this place every day, and every time I come here this place it makes me think about the mistakes I've made in the past, and I've made a lot. This is why I'm telling you to help and support one another and your other comrades as you will need them when the time comes and to avoid the mistakes that I have made in the past." Soon Naruto walked to the memorial stone and said a small prayer. Kakashi smiled at him and rubbed his red hair before turning to the 2 others. "Now from tomorrow, we will start our missions as Team 7. A Genin of Konoha arc completed. Next is Wave arc. Chapter 34, Wave. The forest was singing with the song of birds. Suddenly, a shadow jumped fast from tree to tree, followed by 2 larger shadows. The small shadow jumped faster and hid behind a bush. The 2 big shadows looked around, trying to find the dem cat. While all this was happening, a shadow was staring at the cat. His blue eyes looked like ice. "Are you in position, Pinky?" Kakashi asked, bored. "I'm not Pinky, and yes, I'm in position," she shouted, annoyed by the nickname. "I'm in position too, and don't you dare use that nickname," Sasuke suddenly said, not wanting to hear his sensei right now. "Very well. Emo," Kakashi whispered with a chuckle. Sasuke grunted in annoyance but decided to ignore it for now. "Naruto, you there?" Kakashi asked the redhead but was met with silence. Even Sakura and Sasuke found this strange. Kakashi was about to ask again when the young Uzumaki spoke. "Got the cat?" he suddenly said. They all exchanged looks before dropping down and seeing the devil Tora in Naruto's hands. He was softly caressing her, and she purred at his touch, her eyes closed and enjoying the moment. Kakashi had a raised eyebrow since he didn't remember anyone else ever to be able to have any chance to touch the cat without the risk of losing an eye. But knowing Naruto's bright aura and the way how animals, in general, felt relaxed in his presence, he shouldn't be that much surprised. Sasuke looked surprised but didn't care much about the stupid cat, and he was sure that cat was an evil spawn. Sakura, on the other hand, looked surprised and annoyed. "How can you do that?" she exclaimed, pointing an accusing finger at Naruto, whose eyes suddenly became red. Sakura felt her knees weak by his gaze and shut her mouth. Tora screeched at Sakura. Kakashi sighed, bored of Sakura, who keeps trying to undermine Naruto. He really didn't understand what Hokage-sama was smoking when he decided to put Sakura in Team 7. The young Uzumaki had tried to help the Banshee, but no results. "Sakura, you have to stop chasing Sasuke." She had just turned up to training with Naruto late, once again because of a hunt for Sasuke, who had unsurprisingly eluded her. She had no idea where he kept going. "Why? You want me to date you, do you?" "Sorry, well, it's not going to happen," she said spitefully, thinking of Sasuke. Naruto laughed out loud at her words and slapped his knees. After calming down, he looked up at her. "Why would I care for your attention? I mean, seriously? You keep trying to undermine and talk all the time about how awesome Sasuke is. Why would someone ever in my place want your attention?" Naruto asked with a hint of irritation. Sakura kept quiet and slowly lowered her head in shame and embarrassment. "You can do whatever you want, Sakura, but if you wanted to become a shinobi just to be with Sasuke and no other reason, then you're pathetic," he said with a cold tone that could freeze an ocean. Hokage Tower. Soon they returned to the Hokage to announce that they completed their mission to chase the devil cat. Tora was quickly snatched by a woman who bone-crushed the poor cat. Naruto felt bad for Tora while she desperately tried to return to the hands of Naruto. "Thank you, Hokage-sama," she said, gave the old Hokage money, and left through the big door. Sakura smirked at the torture the poor cat was receiving while Sasuke kept a stoic face and not really showing that he enjoyed her punishment after hours of chasing her all around the village. "We are ready for another mission." Kakashi-sensei started looking at the Hokage. Naruto turned to the Hokage when they heard a scream. Everyone turned to see Tora running away and the woman desperately calling her name. "Or you can just catch Tora again," Sarutobi stated with a smirk but met with denial by the new genins. "No," the three genins shouted at the same time. The old Hokage laughed at their response, fully expecting it by them. "Don't worry, I still remember Tobirama-sensei forcing my team and me to chase after her," he stated, earning a surprised look from everyone in the office. Even Kakashi looked surprised by his raised eyebrow. "Wait? How old is that cat?" everyone suddenly asked. Even Sasuke couldn't believe that cat to be that old, but remembering her speed and her ways of avoiding them for so many hours. Sarutobi raised his hands. "Well, anyway, that's not really important," he stated with a slight smirk on his face. The old Hokage then grabbed a few letters in front of his desk. "Well, you can help this old man who needs help with his garden, or paint this wall for this new restaurant, or how about a real mission this time, Gigi? Like a C rank?" Naruto interjected the Hokage, tired of doing the chores these people called missions. Sakura was quick to scold Naruto. "Naruto, show respect to Hokage same." Surprisingly, she didn't try to hit him. "Must have scared her back there," he mused. "Naruto." Iruka spoke with a frown, "You can't demand missions like that. Genin teams have to do D rank missions for 2 to 3 months before they get qualified for C ranks. And even then they're Jonin sensei dash." Hiruzen cut Iruka off with a gentle chuckle. "It's okay, Sakura-chan. He has called me that ever since he was little." Sakura's eyes widened a bit in surprise, as did Sasuke's. They didn't know Naruto was so close to the Hokage to the extent of calling the man a grandfather figure. Hiruzen turned towards Kakashi. "Kakashi, do you think your team is ready for a C rank mission?" The Jonin put the finger on his chin, acting like he was thinking about it. The Jonin knew Naruto was more than ready and decided to just go on with it. "Sure they are, Hokage-sama," he stated proudly. Sasuke smiled while Sakura looked insecure about it. Iruka took a step forward and was ready to protest when the old Hokage raised his hand to stop him. "Very well, you can have this C rank, to protect this bridge builder," Hokage stated before turning his head to a door in the office. "Call Tazuna inside." The door revealed a man holding a bottle of alcohol that was already half empty, his cheeks red from drinking. His eyes looked at the young genin in front of him, his eyes filled with disappointment. "I asked for actual shinobi, not kids who need someone to look after them," he started. taking another drink from his bottle. Sasuke looked annoyed by his words. That's funny, coming from someone who clearly doesn't understand that age is not important when it comes to being a shinobi, Naruto suddenly said in a kunao in front of his throat. Tazuna felt a shiver and couldn't dare even move his head to see who was behind him. He felt a cold sweat run down his forehead. Now, Naruto, no need to threaten our customers, Kakashi said, trying to ease the tension in the room. Naruto just smiled before appearing in front of his team. Tazuna touched his neck to see if there was any blood, but surprisingly there wasn't. Turning his eyes to the team, he noticed the boy's red hair. Despite being drunk, he could have sworn he had seen that shade of red before but couldn't quite put a finger where. They will do, I need to go to the wave country, he said, and the genins turned to their sensei. The front gate. 1 hour, he stated before disappearing, followed by the redhead. Naruto. He reached his compound and started gathering everything he might need in the mission. He knew Shizun-chan and Tsunade Baa-chan were most likely working in the hospital, so he decided to leave a letter for them. Grabbing soldier pills and sleep pills, he sealed them in a scroll and grabbed kunao, shurikens. Last he grabbed food and sealed it in his scrolls. His sword tightened to his back. Naruto's thoughts went to the mission, and he knew Uzumaki was close to the wave. He wondered if he could sneak in during the mission or maybe ask Kakashi-sensei for permission to visit his homeland. Deciding to think about it when they reach wave, he wore his sandals and shunshin to the gate. Sasuke. He grabbed his bag and started putting food, bottles with water, a few soldier pills, and started putting his weapons. He glanced at the scroll on the table and decided to leave it there and start training again after he returned. Finally closing the bag, he left through the door and turned to look at his home. He put his hands together and said a small prayer before locking his house and going to the front gate. Sakura. She put a hairspray on her bag, looked at the food on the table, and decided to grab a few cans that had low-fat food. She grabbed 3 cans and did the math in her head. That was more than enough. She wouldn't need more than that. Sakura put another hairspray, her items needed for her hair to look pretty, and decided to go to the main gate. The main gate. Kakashi waited for his team to arrive. Tazuna was staying close to him, looking impatient. But Kakashi could see more to this situation but decided to ignore it. For now, the man was probably just nervous. Jonin knew his team was ready for a C rank, especially Naruto, and probably Sasuke. His team had its ups and downs since they first started doing missions. Kakashi had first started by teaching them teamwork. Surprisingly, Sasuke had somehow agreed to follow Naruto's lead and work together. Sakura didn't do much, which concerned Kakashi. He encouraged her to train, but she did the bare minimum in that department. He sighed and thought of ways to do something better. Perhaps making them complete D missions without his help could be beneficial. He decided to consider it after returning. Sasuke had made progress in teamwork but still couldn't stop thinking about killing Itachi. Kakashi understood his motivations, but he knew that revenge would destroy everything and gain nothing in return. The satisfaction of killing him wasn't worth it. Kakashi thought and turned to see Naruto appearing in front of him. Tazuna couldn't understand how they could do that but decided not to ask since he would most likely understand nothing and just receive a headache in the end. I'm ready, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto started putting his hands behind his head. Kakashi noticed his lack of a bag but knew Naruto preferred scrolls instead of S bag. Soon Sasuke and Sakura arrived. Sakura put her hands on her knees, breathing heavily. Sasuke looked bored. She looked up to see Naruto without a bag pack. Naruto, where's your bag? She asked, pointing the finger at him. I sealed my things in scrolls, much easier to travel, he stated, earning an approval nod from Sasuke and Kakashi-sensei. If that's the case, seal my bag as well, she said and was about to hand him her bag. No, if you want to do that, then learn how to seal it yourself, he stated and walked away from her. Well, let's go, Kakashi said with a cheerful tone trying to make the mission look more fun. They soon started walking outside the village, and soon the village didn't look behind them anymore. Naruto liked and decided just to keep silent since he enjoyed it more. After almost 4 hours of talking of nothing but silence. Sakura seemed to sense the awkwardness, and she did not have the same problem as Naruto of finding a topic to talk about. Tazuna-san, you are from Wave Country, right? Tazuna turned his head towards her. Yeah, what about it? Do you have a ninja village in that country? Surprisingly, Kakashi answered, actually, the Wave does not have a ninja village. Each of the elemental nations has its hidden shinobi villages. But the smaller countries don't have the resources to fund, let alone maintain their hidden village. Budget, people, missions, there are so many resources to account for that the smaller nations can't afford. So they prefer to hire ninjas from other countries. Tazuna nodded his head in agreement, knowing their poor state. What about Kirigakure? That village is close to Wave. Sakura asked, thinking why Tazuna had not asked for help from them. Naruto turned his head to look at her with a glare. Is because of a civil war. Sakura, one day Mizukage suddenly decided to exterminate all people with bloodlines in the country, starting a civil war in the process, Naruto replied before Tazuna could. Sakura looked horrified that the cage that is supposed to protect the village was harming it. The girl kept quiet, not wanting to talk about it more. While walking, both Kakashi and Naruto noticed a puddle in the road. Naruto felt two chakras coming from the puddle. He grunted in annoyance but at the same time wondered why they were there. This was a C-rank mission, and he knew none of them had any big bounty on his head, except maybe Kakashi, but the chakra in the puddle was medium Chunin chakra level at best. Deciding to wait, it didn't take long and from the puddle came out two masked shinobi that carried a blade chain that tightened around Kakashi before cutting him to shreds. Sakura screamed. One down. Naruto put his hand on the pommel of his sword. Sakura, protect Tazuna, he yelled before rushing at the two ninjas. Before any of them could do anything, the redhead threw a kunai in the chains that blocked them in the ground. With a quick slash, he cut the arm of one of the attackers who screamed in pain, trying to hold the wound with his other hand as blood flew everywhere like rain. Brother, the other one screamed but became silent when he just fell to the ground after Naruto hit him at the back of his head. He turned around to see Sasuke in front of Tazuna with a kunai in his hand, while Sakura stood in the same place shaking like a leaf, her eyes looking at the guy's arm in the ground. The redhead narrowed his eyes before turning to look at Kakashi-sensei, who came out from behind a tree. Well done, Naruto and Sasuke, it is important always to protect the client, he said, glancing at Sakura before giving Tazuna a furious look. He marched in front of him and grabbed him by the throat. I thought this was a C-rank mission, protecting you from bandits but not hired shinobi, he accused and pointed the finger at the Chunin level shinobi that attacked them. Tazuna tried to free himself from his grip. I don't know why they attacked, he tried to say. Naruto sighed, bored. Tazuna, I can feel when someone's lying, we are giving you one more chance, or we leave you in the road, he stated with a cold tone. Tazuna felt the key and nodded his head. Kakashi dropped him to the ground. Have you heard of a man called Gato? I've heard of him, Naruto stated. Kakashi raised an eyebrow, silently asking to elaborate. He is the owner of a shipping company. When I last read about him, he was among the top 15 richest of the nations. Suspected for criminal activity, but no proof, he said with his arms crossed. The very same, Tazuna agreed. Though now he is among the top 5. He came to Wave Country a bit more than 2 years ago. First, we didn't think anything about it, but soon he had bought up all the shipping industry of our nation. You see, Wave Country is an island, so we are dependent on shipping to get goods. But that wasn't the worst part. He used his monopoly to drain the country dry. The people live in poverty. Many lost their houses to Gato. Whoever protested was killed. He takes what he wants with his hired thugs, making sure nobody dares to oppose him. His shipping business covers his criminal activities. He deals with drugs, alcoholics, rare goods, even slaves. Everything and anything that brings him money. The only thing he fears is the bridge I'm building. If I finish my bridge, his monopoly will be rendered obsolete, and our country will be back in business because we will be connected to the mainland. So why didn't you just tell the truth to Hokage-sama? Kakashi glared at him. Hokage-sama would understand. In that case, after the mission was completed, you would pay a little every month until is fully paid or offer a deal amongst Wave and Konoha, Naruto suggested. Tazuna lowered his gaze, and he hadn't thought of it. Kakashi turned to look at his students. This mission is now B rank, maybe even A rank. According to the rules we should return to the village, he stated, giving each of his students a glance to see what they thought of it. We can do this, Kakashi-sensei, I never turned back and left people to suffer because of a maniac, Naruto stated with a smile on his face. Kakashi smiled back, already knowing what his little brother would say. He turned to look at Sasuke, who shrugged his shoulders. I say we continue, we have you if anything is harder than we thought, he said, putting his hands on his pockets. That left only Sakura, who still looked terrified. I say we continue, she said, still not sure if that was the best choice. Kakashi nodded in agreement. The demon brothers have a bounty on their head, Naruto, he stated, and Naruto nodded in understanding. He walked up to them and stabbed them in the head. Sakura closed her eyes, and tears slowly rolled down her cheek. After killing them, Naruto sealed their bodies in 2 different scrolls and turned to his team. Let's go. After walking for days, they soon reached a coast. Since the demon brothers hadn't had any problems, that surprised both Naruto and Kakashi, who was sure someone else would attack them by now. They soon started making their way to Wave. Tanzo greeted the fisherman. The guy greeted Tanzo with a friendly smile but kept a wary eye at the shinobi team. After traveling for 2 hours, they soon reached the shore. Naruto saw the bridge while making their way here. He had to admit that he was impressed by the size of the bridge. Good luck, Tazuna, the fisherman said and soon left. Kakashi turned to look at Tazuna. How long before we reach your house? He asked, trying to see if there was anything to worry about. Almost there, we will reach it within 3 hours, he stated, and soon they started walking towards Tazuna's house. During all this, the team was quiet, but Naruto couldn't shake off a strange feeling in his stomach. It felt like someone was calling him. He couldn't understand it and spread his senses as far as possible but couldn't detect a living human anywhere nearby. The closer they got, the stronger the feeling. Unknown to Naruto, the seal on his stomach started glowing red and slowly growing. Kurama noticed it and used his chakra to stop the seal from whatever it was trying to do. The fox didn't know why it was reacting like that, but he didn't want to give it any chances. Naruto breathed in relief, and soon they were halfway to Tazuna's house. Suddenly he felt a chakra behind a tree. Without thinking twice, he threw a kunao enhanced with wind chakra. Everyone suddenly was on their guards. Naruto saw a white rabbit slowly walking away. He narrowed his eyes. See, Naruto, you almost hurt an innocent bunny, Sakura shouted, but the redhead was in no mood to hear her. Down both Kakashi and Naruto screamed. The redhead grabbed Sakura and Tazuna and threw them to the ground. A large sword suddenly flew and hit the tree near them. A man stood at the sword's handle, who had bandages covering his face from his nose to his throat. He wore bandages around his arms. His eyes are cold like ice. Naruto stood up, feeling the hidden person behind their new guest. To Naruto's surprise, he couldn't feel malicious thoughts coming from the hidden person but only from the first guest, and even from him weren't at the same level he usually gets from some of the stupid villagers. Kakashi walked in front of the team. Kakashi, hey take, what an honor to be against you, the man stated with a smirk behind his mask. Zabuza Momoichi, Kakashi slowly moved his hand to his forehead protector that covered his left eye. Naruto noticed it and smiled. What do you want? Kakashi asked warily, his eye not leaving Zabuza. The missing nin chuckled darkly before pointing the finger at Tazuna. I'm here for the bridge builder, give him to me, and none of your small children will have to die, he stated, and releasing a tiny bit of his ki, making both Sasuke and Sakura shake, while Naruto just brushed it off since Kurama could produce 10 times more ki on his sleep. He walked and stood beside Kakashi. I'm sorry to break it to you, but it is our mission to help Tazuna, so can you peacefully leave us, mummy, Naruto stated, holding the pommel of his katana. Zabuza narrowed his eyes in annoyance but was impressed that the kid didn't look affected by his ki. I'm afraid that won't happen anytime soon, kid, he started, jumping in the water nearby. Kakashi moved his forehead protector upwards and revealed his fully matured Sharingan. The Sharingan so early, I'm honored. I have read about you during my time as Numbu, everyone calls you Kakashi of the Sharingan, he said coldly before doing hand signs. Sasuke immediately grew interested and wondered why his sensei would have the Sharingan. He knew Kakashi wasn't of his clan, or maybe someone gave it to him. Or did he steal it? Naruto, stand close to Sasuke and Sakura and protect them, Kakashi ordered. Naruto nodded in agreement and stood in front of Tazuna. His katana on his hand is covered in wind chakra. Hidden mist technique. That all for what if Naruto found out about Uzumaki clan at an early age. Part 16. If you like this story, please show your support by liking the video and subscribing to my channel, and also show your support to the author by hitting the link down in the description. Thanks for listening, and until next time.